napkins and pals, and there's also therapy too.
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody, to Women in Garbage. Welcome to Park Pals, first of all. But the episode that we're doing is Women in Garbage. So exciting. As you can probably tell, Maddie is not here with us today. She had a really long travel time, and we're just going to let her rest. So, Maddie, if you're listening, I hope that you're resting and just taking the time that you need. But we have a lot to cover right now. So we've got such great voice memos coming up, and we've just got a lot to do. So let's get started. Again, like I said, season 5, episode 11, Women in Garbage. A quick recap from Two Parties last time. The last episode was called Two Parties. We got some really wonderful voice memos from people in that episode as well. So I'm so excited that we can play that for you. Tim Trobeck sent in a great voice memo, and he was a construction worker who was looking for the artifacts in the pit that Leslie threw in. And one of his lines was like, "I found something and some weird shaped candy." We were kind of laughing last week that he didn't know it was shaped like a penis. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and play Tim's for you. And thank you so much for sending that in.
Hi, my name is Tim Trobeck. I played Steve Furple in the episode Two Parties on Parks and Rec. Some interesting facts from the day. One thing I was told is that the writers had been trying to use the name Steve Furple for a while. They were trying to work it into the show. And I'm not sure if it's a real person or if they just thought the name was funny, but I'm very proud to be the actor that got to be able to use the name Steve Furple, which for whatever reason was a name that the writers wanted to use. So I guess that's one thing kind of cool. Other things, the hole that we filled in the construction site was actually walking distance from the apartment I lived in at the time. And because I know the area, I do know that after probably about 6 months to maybe a year after we filmed this, they put an apartment building there. So it is not a Punch Burger, but it is an apartment building now. Other things from set, as you can see in the show, I'm pretty far away from the other cast. But I was kind of got the feeling, I don't know if I heard somebody talking about it, what it was exactly, but I got the feeling that Amy Poehler might have been a little bit under the weather. So, I was trying to think of funny things to do, try to keep it moving and, not disrupt anything if that was actually true. Again, I don't know if I just heard somebody say that or if it's just a feeling I got, but some of the things we did probably maybe 4 to 6 takes. So it was really quick. I was trying to ask people around me, hey, is this funny? Is this funny? Just to kind of get some ideas of what might work. I think when you can see on the actual episode that it looks like I'm moving the gummy candy towards my mouth. So you can take that how you want, that either I'm going to eat it or I'm going to do something else to the gummy candy. I also did one, I think, where I was like smelling it and then moving it towards my mouth. One other thing that I wanted to do, which I actually ended up not doing, again, with the feeling that we need to keep this moving, but I did want to add a line that it says, it looks like a rocket flying towards a planet. And you could probably guess what planet name would be the funniest one there. But again, I did not say that. I thought it would have been funny, but just wasn't sure if I should do it, if it was going to screw up the timing, if it was going to screw up the take. So I skipped it. But other than that, like I said, it was a really quick day. Did, like I said, 5, 6, 7 takes somewhere in there, and just kept it moving. And I hope people enjoyed it. I had a great time on set. That was it. So thank you very much. And have a great day. All right, bye.
That was so great. Oh my gosh. I love hearing all those random behind the scenes things. I totally understand what you mean. I feel like if I was an actor, a guest actor on set, it would be really hard to follow through with your instinct to improvise because, they're really open to improvising, of course, but they're also wanting, like he said, to keep it moving. And, it's a well-oiled machine at this point. And sometimes they do fun runs, but, not every scene / actor gets to do that with them. So, I loved the idea. For what it's worth, I loved that idea of the planet and which planet name would work the best for a penis-shaped gummy. That's really funny, though, about the different takes of, like, it coming close to your mouth. Oh, my God. And I can't believe it, but I'm also really happy that it's an apartment building and not a Punch Burger. That's great. Do I wish it was a park? Of course. Do I understand that we can't always get what we want? Yeah, that's what it is. But at least it's not a Punch Burger or, another random fast food place. So that's great. And yeah, so funny about that location that he lived so close. Oh my gosh, I love hearing that. And that, you can, well, I mean, if you ever drove by it or drove by it again after you moved, and what a fun memory that would be as you walk by. And yes, oh my gosh, the name thing that you mentioned first, that is so great because Mike Schur and the crew, if you know anything about parks or about, the Parks and Rec behind the scenes, writers, crew, all that kind of stuff, they're definitely looking for names that are abnormal and weird. I always say if you are having, a bored time, just go on IMDb and look at all the Parks and Rec like guest star names because they come up with the wildest things ever. It's freaking hilarious. But yeah, I'm really glad that you got to be the character that got to use that name because, they love that. Mike Schur especially really loves that. And it's one of those things too, they were talking about how if you have a name that is either too used or not used enough, you could be sued. So like if they have only 2 or 3 names that are, in the world, those 2 or 3 name people could be like, well, my name is unique enough that you could have stolen that. You know what I mean? Or like trademarked it or whatever. But if you're using John Smith, it's like there's 800 bajillion John Smiths. So like, how would you even know if it was, based off of you anyways? So they couldn't sue. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyhow, that was great, Tim. I really, really loved that. Really enjoyed that. So thank you so much for sending that in. The next one we have Joe Faust, who I mentioned last week. He played the waiter at St. Elmo's Steakhouse, and he's a friend of Nick Offerman's. And he sent in 2 more voice memos after we had already recorded. So I'm excited to play those for you. And I do want to remind you all that I'll tag both Tim and Joe in the show notes and on our Instagram and everything. But Joe has a great art Instagram, and he's a great artist. So if you are interested in that, please check out his artwork because it's really cool, and it would be nice to have an original. Okay, here is the first one.
So being out of town and filming was great because if I was in LA, I just would have come on set, done my job, and gone away. But I was there from the very beginning. Early 6 a.m. makeup call, all of us, all the guys there. Jim is also an old friend from Chicago, not as close as Nick, but they both knew me and introduced me to everybody, so they knew I was like cool and fine to hang out with. And I remember we got in this little van that was super tall and tall enough that you could stand inside of it. And I just sat down behind the driver, and then Rob Lowe sat next to me. And he is so pretty. It is distracting how beautiful he is. And so I just made a joke and said, hey, you're not going to get all handsy on me, are you? And he immediately just yes-and me with the joke and was like, woohoo, woohoo, and pretended to be grabbing at me. And I felt like, oh, don't do that. I mean, unless you want to. Stop. Don't stop. But do it. Don't do it. And we hung out together all day. We did the restaurant scene. We went to the Colts Stadium. They gave us practice balls and just let us mess around on the field and run passes and do plays and try to kick field goals. And they didn't have craft services, so a local caterer was taking care of the food. And there was a chocolate fountain, and the owner of the Colts was there, and we used their private box as our hangout area. And it was great.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. First of all, so nice about Rob Lowe, joking around with you and yes-anding you and that it worked out because it could have gone the other way. So I'm both proud of you, for trying, and for Rob Lowe for giving it right back to you. That is so awesome. And then, oh my gosh, that is just so amazing as far as the Colts Stadium and being able to just be there as a guest star too, like with all of this amazing friendship and camaraderie from the show itself. So cool. Oh my gosh, chocolate fountain. I wrote that as I was taking notes on your voice memo. I love a chocolate fountain, and I want that for every party. Okay, here's the next and last one from Mr. Joe Faust.
We shot the scene in the restaurant. We did a fun run, which is something they typically do. They do a run where they just get to improvise some things that they want to try, and even let me play around with some dialogue that they didn't end up keeping, but it was super fun. We had a producer's dinner at the very end of the whole day, and they bought us dinner, and Chris Pratt was like a great host and like said, everyone at the table go around and say one great thing that happened today. And he was always very inclusive. We hung out in a trailer outside the restaurant for part of the day. He taught me how to poop better. You like put your fist behind you and kind of hit your kidneys and then push stuff around the back and push your guts around the front. He said, sometimes a whole nother load comes out. He also was like pranking all day and just being fun. He said, hey, do you guys smell something burning? Like in the bathroom of this trailer, do you smell something burning there? I said, no, I don't smell burning. He's like, shoot, well, usually I can get people to go in there and smell right after I took a dump, but none of you fell for it. Let's see. I'm trying to remember where else we went that day. We hung out like at the hotel bar afterwards and like walked around the city some. All the guys were sort of in mode that they were on vacation. It was fun. So yeah, it ended up being like a 16-hour plus day, maybe 18 hours hanging out with all of them all together. And just a very friendly, lovely group of guys.
Yay, that was awesome to hear. Oh my gosh. Pratt sounds crazy to be on set with, just in general, I guess, because he does seem like he's a jokester / wants to kind of be on for you. Wild. Oh my God. A producer's dinner, though, that sounds so cool and so fancy, but also I'm sure it was like not as fancy as I'm imagining it in my head, just because they all seem like super cool people. But yeah, what an exciting time. Oh my gosh. So thank you, Tim and Joe, for sending those in. That is so cool. And I'm so glad I got to hear a lot of the behind the scenes moments there. So I really appreciate your time and sending those in. That was so fun. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Well, enough of me just saying, oh my God. And let's move on to season 5, episode 11, Women in Garbage. This was written by Harris Whittles, who we know and love. And if you're new here, Harris is such a big, huge backbone of Parks and many other shows. Great comedian. And rest in peace, because he did pass away, sadly. And his legacy just truly lives on. I mean, he is so good. And, I mention him every time he writes an episode. It's wonderful. So thank you, Harris, for your service, honestly. This was directed by Norm Hiscock, who also was a huge backbone of Parks and The Good Place, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all of these awesome shows that we love. So we've got a great team here for a great episode. Quick note, this was based on the 2012 Birth Control Congressional Committee that was comprised of, you guessed it, all men. Ain't life grand? Ain't it? This is where I think in the episodes, Parks is starting to get almost sad for me with the parallels of the dumpster fire that is currently happening a little bit, a lot of it, you know what I mean? But it also is such a great commentary and something that Parks is just so smart about doing and always has been, basing these true things on and then making a fictional, smart, witty, beautiful show about it. So just wanted to give you that bonus though about how this episode is based off of that congressional committee. So cool. All right. Well, Maddie is not here, but she did say she was going to send in a summary. So if she does, I will place that right here.
I'm here to give you a summary, and here we go. A woman can do anything a man can do. Period. Done. I feel like that should be the summary, but obviously I will elaborate a little bit more. Leslie and April embark on demonstrating women's capabilities so that more departments in the government will hire women. Ben and Andy help Tom connect with his young athletic clientele. Anne and Ron share an interesting back and forth of taking care of Diane's children, and Chris explores his relationship with Shauna Malway-Tweep. So I am sad that I'm missing this episode because I love this episode, specifically the ending and how, Leslie and April show that they're capable because, no one could lift the fridge, and they were able to be resourceful enough to realize, hey, this could be utilized in another way if we can't move it, right? Like, let's get more people together and let's put it to good use. So love that. We have Ben dropping everything to help Tom again. Andy's just there for the Skittles. Love that he got his thing. So sad that Ben didn't get his. But I really loved this switch, although I don't think I've ever seen middle school kids give press conferences. Very intrigued to talk about how this links into our next episode of Anne's decision, with her acting so weird around Diane's kids. I'm excited to hear what you think about that and how that all connects. And then, Chris getting back out there, getting back on the horse. The therapy's working. But he's kind of having to re-find his confidence and re-understand the dating world. So I think it's a great episode for that. So sorry I missed it. I love you, and I will talk to you very soon.
All right, so we open with the Parks Department meeting with Paula Hork, and she was the first female city councilor, which was a huge inspiration to Leslie. I love that her handkerchief is a receipt. It also really reminds me of the timely CVS receipts that are like 1,800 pages long. And technically, Leslie says that she should have had the signature of her husband or father to reserve the conference room, which is obviously, like we talked about, a commentary on the very real ownership that men have over women and women's choices. And I looked it up just because I was curious because of this, being based on the congressional committee comprised of all men. Women weren't even able to get credit cards in their own names until 1974, after the Equal Opportunity Act was signed into law. Or Equal Credit Opportunity Act, rather, was signed into law. 1974, you guys, that was only 50 years ago. 50. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And that's something that I constantly have to remind myself of as well, that, we are an experiment. We are just this country is such a huge experiment, and we're just a baby in the grand scheme of things. We are so young and stupid. We're in our stupid teen years, I feel. You'd think that we would learn. You'd think that we would, but we just haven't quite yet. Although it is nice to see that, this Equal Credit Opportunity Act did help us a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't get overturned. But I just have to keep reminding myself of the hope that we have, because we are so young and everything is such an experiment. We are still trying. We're not done yet. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to try not to have a soapbox moment throughout this whole episode, but it's just how I feel. And I hope that you all understand that. All right. Leslie now says that the city council is a pervert-free people's club. And I love that Donna and Anne are correcting her. Very rightly so, like pretty immediately too. And they mentioned Dexhart and Milton, and Dexhart's a self-described pervert, and Milton tried to kiss her. Well, it's not perfect. And then Paula says that she wanted to start a commission to get more women in government, and Leslie is going to take up that commission and get it going in honor of Paula Hork's, service to the council. And April has this joke, and I gotta be honest, because I know this is a joke, and I actually love April for doing this, because maybe I'll start doing this with people who I know support certain things, who support Trump. I'll say it. These are the views of me only. If you need to turn it off and unfollow me, that's fine. But anyway, I just feel like, I'm activated because of the election, obviously. And so I feel like I should try to take April's approach and just be a little sarcastic with it and see what happens. But anyway, her joke is, there are other, women who believe this, really. But April's joke is, women should follow the man, and I believe they have power over us and things like that. Yeah, Leslie, you'll never land a beau with that domineering tone. And Paula is like outraged, obviously. She's like, or not outraged, just really confused, like with a look of shock. And everybody else on the other side of the table is like, she's kidding. She's kidding. It's not real. But a little breakdown on Paula Hork. She is played by the actress Bonnie Bartlett, who has been a wonderful actor for a very long time. She still acts in a lot of things. She is mostly known, I think, for Saint Elsewhere, which was a soap opera type of drama show in the 80s. Her IMDb goes on forever. It's very impressive. She's also in Better Call Saul, Key and Peele, so many things. I think people in my generation would probably recognize her as Dean Bolander. I think that's how we pronounced her name. I can't remember. But she was the Dean in Boy Meets World. And she dates Feeney. And guess what? She's married to Feeney in real life. They met on St. Elsewhere. Isn't that wild? Love when that happens. That's just like when Julia Louis-Dreyfus is married to Brad Hall, who was the guy in, oh my gosh, I forgot the name, but the Pawnee Commons episode when, Eagleton guy, fancy Eagleton guy, is trying to build the park for Pawnee. Anyways, yeah, I love hearing that kind of stuff. But yes, great work for Bonnie Bartlett, who played Paula Hork. Great job. All right, so now we're in Ron's office, and Diane's kids are there because Ron is watching them since their sitter is not available. And oh my gosh, good job, Ron! I'm so proud of him doing this. I never would have anticipated in season 1 or even 2 or maybe even 3 that he would say yes to watching children, especially when they're screaming and going crazy around him. Because they're being so chaotic and insane, and Ron is just letting them hit him, run around, be loud. Wild! Okay. Anne walks in, and Anne doesn't know how to talk to these kids, to Diane's kids, and she literally says, I'm weird with kids, I don't know, because she keeps trying to figure out how to talk to them because she can't decide if they're little babies or not little babies. Now, I will say this is kind of the scandal of why Anne wanted kids in the very next episode when the episode prior, she doesn't even know how to talk to children. Okay? So that has been a very confusing moment for Parks fans. However, I did find a note that this episode was not supposed to air in this order. Okay, so that could explain something. Excuse me, something. Not all. Okay? So if the writers or somebody sees this, hello, can you please let us know if that is the only explanation or if that was just an oops on your part? Because the next episode, she is ready. And I understand she did... I think Rashida and Rob Lowe were trying to get out of the show at this point in time. And not like, in a mean way. They were doing other things. So they needed to write them off somehow, whatever. But it doesn't make sense that in the last episode, she's weird. And in the very next episode, she's like, I want kids. Now, another argument could be made that by the end of this episode, she's into kids and she can talk to them and she's learned how to work with them / play with them / be with them. Okay. But I don't feel that is enough to go from, not like now you're a babysitter. Now you can be an auntie. It's not like it's something I've been thinking about for a long time is what she says in the next episode. Explain. Okay. But that is one thing you can take with you that it wasn't supposed to air in this order. So I'll just take that. It's not enough, but I'll take that as some salt on the dish. Okay. To flavor it up. And come up with an explanation. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but there you go. All right. So Jerry walks in, tries to bond with the kids, and I do love the blunt, no. And now Leslie is presenting her idea of the Equal Gender Commission to Chris, and he says he's going to ask each department to send 2 people to a meeting today, and he can ask Sean O'Malley Tweep to write an article about it because they're special friends, and that's what they're calling it now. But I will say I do love this because this is a real thing where Chris says they participated in something called a group hang because they couldn't quite, he's not really sure where this relationship is or what this relationship is, where it's going, anything like that. They haven't really defined it. DTR, I've learned, define the relationship. They have not done that yet. So they went on a group hang, and listen, I hear you. Group hangs are very confusing, but I think that is a good thing to do in the beginning anyway, just to like get to know each other a little bit more. But then when she brings up, we'll get to it, but when she brings up the next group hang, I'm like, girl, that's weird. But okay. Anyhow, he says, he says he doesn't understand behaviors of young people. And I'm wondering, how old is she supposed to be? Because I think he's in his 40s. And so she's like, are they trying to portray her as like 26 or 24? I would think young people would be like young 20s. But I was putting her at like 30. I don't know. I mean, 30's young, but not that much younger than him. I don't know. Anyhow, I read too deep into it. I was just curious. All right, so now we're with Tom, and he has sent a text to Ben about Michael Stipe being there to get him to come to Tom. And Michael Stipe is the lead singer of REM. If you did not know that, personally, I didn't know. I wouldn't have known him by his name. I just know REM. And if you'll remember, Ben uses an REM song for his stop motion project. So yes, it was a really good fake bribe, and Tom did a good job to get him to come down there. But Tom does get Chris Pratt, Skittles. And he gets his thing. Ben gets all sad because Andy got his thing. But I mean, Michael Stipe versus Skittles, there's really no comparison. Skittles are super easy to get. So, and also Andy will come for literally anything. I feel like if you told Andy, like, someone wants a hug, Andy would have come down there. You know what I'm saying? But it is funny that Andy's only task for the day was to get Skittles. So But the reason Tom calls them down is because he wants them to teach him about basketball because Rent-A-Swag is doing really well, which, side note, a profit in your third month is wonderful. That's unheard of. So well done to Tom. But the kids who come into the store are obsessed with basketball and he knows nothing about it. And he wants to learn so he can make conversation and schmooze with them. And I think this is a great idea. I think if you're an investor or a business owner, you want to know the people that you're selling to, their interests and likes, and how to connect with them to make a real relationship happen. Obviously they don't have to be best friends, but it's nice to be able to volley back and forth in a conversation and talk about clothes in general as well. So yeah, he wants to learn how to do basketball. Did I do basketball? Anyway, all right. Next scene, we are at the Commission on Gender Equality, and no one sent women to the meeting. It's all men. It's a real sausage fest, as April says. And Chris is deeply hurt, which I do like that they showed him being upset about it. But yeah, I mean, he's deeply hurt that he's part of the problem. You may very well be part of the problem. And that, I think, is something that people sometimes have to come to terms with because they see it as their intentions are great. Of course, they just assume it's great, but it has to be pretty explicit sometimes with equality. You have to say it. You know what I mean? And you have to demand it. Almost. And I think that's something where a lot of issues arise when you're not ready to be humble and you're not ready to say, oh yeah, maybe I am part of the problem and maybe I didn't look at it from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that they showed Chris feeling like, oh shit, I fucked up. So anyhow, Leslie asks if anyone noticed that no women are in the meeting, and Milton thinks Chris is a woman. I do love that he corrects himself and just says he's a beautiful man. And Chris kind of can't help but smile. It's really nice. And reminder that Milton is played by the late, great actor James Green. He sadly passed away in 2018. We did a little tribute to him when he first appeared on the show. Great work. This is not the last time we see him, so looking forward to more of his scenes. However, the character Milton's kind of similar to Jam. Love the actor, hate the character. Milton is thinking that all she did was set up and make the snacks. And we learned that they do, in fact, track her cycle. And Paula Hork talked about that in the opening credits, in the cold open, where, they would track her cycle and blame her for anything she wanted to do because she was on her cycle. And I want to punch Milton in his fat old face. Thank you so much. Moving on. Back in Ron's office, the girls are painting his shoes red, which I think is really cute because I understand that this was not meant to be, but it is fitting because Wicked just came out and Dorothy is a part of that story. Okay? So if you haven't seen Wicked, go see it. Highly recommend it. So good. And if you're a theater nerd, it's great because I think they did a really good job. And if you're not a theater nerd, it'll be great also because you will enjoy the art and the fun, whimsy, and smart moves that they made. Okay? That's all I'll say. I promise. I'm moving on. All right. Diane comes back, and Ron is so nice. Doesn't complain at all. Says they were great. Said they had a wonderful time. It's so sweet. And then it's very precious because then she drops the bomb that the sitter's still out of town, so she needs someone to watch the kids again. And Ron again is faking it like, yeah, we'd love it. I'd love it. It's great. And we cut to Ron drinking all of the whiskey. So very sorry, Ron, but that was so nice of you. I love Leslie's comeback at this gender commission thing. Oh my gosh. When Milton says females are frail and breakable, she says, is it possible you're thinking of a light bulb or your hip? Love it. Great work. Harris Whittles, if you wrote that, I applaud you. Whoever was in the writer's room that wrote that line, it's probably my favorite line. Okay. All right. I'm sorry I keep saying okay so much. I don't mean it to be condescending. All right. We learned that sanitation is the worst offender in gender equality, meaning they have no women except for one secretary. And they say that she's the greatest, but then they even throw her under the bus because they have a man secretary right there that they say is even better. Or they imply that's even better. And basically this man says it's a physically demanding job, so your average woman can't handle it. And they clearly don't know who Leslie is because Leslie is going to take on that challenge and crush it. Okay? Yes. April's really into it, though, and she's asking if they've ever found a dead body in the trash. A torso? A head? I love that. Because, as you can see, or as you might have watched, April and Leslie are taking on this challenge themselves. They're in their garbage outfits with their vests on, just ablazing so that people can see them. They're riding on the back of the trash truck. And I love that April's really into it. Leslie thinks she's being sarcastic, but she loves garbage. It's great. Sanitation Steve is making fun of the binders right now. And Leslie's like, yeah, it says that on every page when he says, what does it say? Like pick up bin, throw in truck or whatever. Anyhow, this guy is played by Michael Patrick McGill, and he plays Tommy in Shameless. 91 episodes, in fact. Great. I did watch that full show, but I've only watched it once, like a while ago, so I honestly wasn't really sure, like who he played. I did love that show when I watched it. Also, obviously not first, but the place where Jeremy Allen White got super recognized too, because hello, he's great. But some people didn't know that he's from The Bear. Okay. Anyhow, Michael Patrick McGill, aka Sanitation Steve, is also in The Office. For Office fans, as Kenny Anderson, he plays Roy's brother. He was in Roy's wedding episode. He was in the episode when Pam has her art show, and him and his brother go there. I think he was also in the episode where they trash the bar, like they have a whole fight moment. Pretty positive, and the jet skis get like torched or whatever. And by torch, not literally, like they have to use the jet ski money. Yikes. And then he was also in Bosch, and he does some voice acting as well. He was in Harley Quinn and The Joker, Soundmind, which is a podcast series, and some other animated things. He was also a cop on New Girl, and he's a cop on Big Bang Theory, which I think he does have like a cop vibe. So I like that for him. So that was Michael Patrick McGill. The other guy who is in Sanitation is played by Kif Vanden Heuvel, and he's an alum of Second City, which is awesome. Looks like he has a lot of voice acting credits, which is wonderful as well. We love a voice actor. He's been in Lego Pixar, Spider-Man 2 video game, 14 episodes of Young Rock, which is the show about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I need to watch. It looks really funny, and I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I love him. Love Moana moment. Great. And a bunch of other things. So that's really cool. But Kif was so wonderful and sent in a lovely voice memo. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Hi, I'm Kif Vanden Heuvel. I play Dewey in Parks and Rec in the episode Women in Garbage, and then I got to come back for another episode at the season finale and the parade and everything. So how I got my job for Parks and Rec, I auditioned for the role of Dewey. The casting director, Dorian Frankel, saw me, and this was back in Jiminy Christmas, 2012, I think, is when we did it. And honestly, it was the first time. What I remember about the audition, I believe it was the first time I had read for Dorian. I had not been in Los Angeles very long. I mean, that was we moved to town in 2011, and this was in 2012. And it took me well over a year to get my first theatrical agent in Los Angeles. I was already repped for voiceover, but I remember reading the scene a couple times. I don't have a lot of memory about the audition other than I just really underplayed it and tried to play as chauvinistic as possible. The scene, if memory serves from the sides, we did all the garbage truck scenes. We didn't do the scene with me and Mike in the town hall meeting, if memory serves. But let's talk about the day on set. Because I came up in Chicago, and I knew that Amy Poehler had also spent time doing stuff in the Second City and Improv Olympic Chicago community. So many of the people that I came up with in Second City know each other. So when I booked Parks and Rec, I reached out to my buddy Jeff Rogers, who was a touring company member and taught and directed, and he's a brilliant performer in Chicago. He was like, "Oh man, you're on Parks." He's like, "You gotta make sure to say hey to Amy from me." So I was like, "Okay, if we cross paths, I'm sure our paths will cross. I definitely will." So when I got to set, go through makeup and wardrobe and everything, and there's a cursory handshake, but then from base camp we were driving to the location where we were shooting everything, and Amy's in the front seat, and we're all wearing our garbage jumpsuit, and Aubrey's in the back, and we're introducing and stuff, and then Amy says, I gotta say, first of all, Amy Poehler is one of the sweetest people I've ever worked with on set. Really an amazing, generous, funny, but also like grounded, wonderful person, and just a delight to work with. So when she turned around from the front seat, and she's like, "Okay, haven't had official introduction, but I'm Amy." I was like, "I'm Kiff. By the way, I'm supposed to say hi to you from Jeff Rogers in Chicago." That was it. After that, we were like old friends for the entire duration of the shoot. We talked about who we knew, and I had directed the touring company at Second City in Chicago, and she had been, I don't remember if she was part of that or not, but like it just was like all of a sudden we were just, Maria Carell this and Jeff Rogers that and all that. It was very cool and very welcoming. Like the entire set energy was so for such a high profile show, I couldn't believe just how comfortable they made it. I remember, I worked for 4 days, I think. One day we shot at CBS Radford, which is like the town hall scene, and then everything else we did on location. And I spent most of that time shooting with Mike McGill, who plays Sanitation Steve. And we know each other from our voiceover agency at CESD. So I've known Mike for a while. So when we got to set, it was like, "Kiff, buddy, what's up, man?" So we hung together most of the time. But then we were with, Amy and Aubrey most of the time when we were doing our stuff. And then also Rob Lowe and Allison was with us as well. So the whole hang was amazing. There was I have random little snippets of memory. Like we were in between takes over by craft service talking about theater and theater stories, and Rob Lowe told a story about doing A Few Good Men on the West End, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of class telling the story, but he offered it, and he was like, "This is back in my wild days where I wasn't sleeping much and I was partying as much as I could." And he was playing if you know the movie, he was playing the Tom Cruise roles. He was playing Daniel Kaffee. And he said there was a moment where I was explaining to the other lawyers in the scene how we were going to take down Nathan Jessup. And he said, I hadn't slept. I was so exhausted, but I was powering through the show, just show adrenaline. And then at one point, he said, I just remember all of a sudden the show ending and blackness. And then I woke up and I opened my eyes and I could see the audience from 90 degrees. And then I realized that I had passed out on stage and fallen over. And I look up at my other castmates, and they're staring at me with no, like, mouth agape. And he's like, I just picked up from wherever I thought I was and continued. And we just finished the show. Like, we had another 45 minutes. No one ever commented on it. No one did it. It was the most surreal experience. Like, I lost time. And then I told a story about a show I was doing at the Goodman Theater in Chicago called The Crowd You're In With, where the scene takes place at like a backyard picnic, and we had real food on stage, and I was upstage at the table with a plate of Doritos waiting for a monologue I had. So I'm listening and reacting and throwing lines out here and there. But as I'm eating the Doritos in the middle of a performance, I have a temporary on my back tooth, and it comes off in the middle of the production. So all of a sudden I'm chewing and I bite down and I hit something really hard in my mouth. And I'm like, what did I just bite down on? I hope I didn't. And then I realized that one of my teeth is like, there's nothing on top of it. There's no tooth there. So I tried to, get this thing out of my mouth, like, without spitting onto a plate or freaking out and stopping the show. So I managed to, work it over and pinch it between my cheek and gum until I got off stage about 20 minutes later and got it sorted. But it was, that's kind of the stuff that happens often on set. It varies from show to show, but very seldom do you get that level of candid chit chat with the leads on the show. I mean, it was truly like a remarkably welcoming and friendly environment. I remember, I just checked the dates. So we shot like December 11, December 12. So we're almost to the day, my 12-year anniversary of shooting on Parks and Rec. But I remember telling Amy and Aubrey and Allison that I had made marshmallows for Thanksgiving, and then I gave them my marshmallow making recipe. So those were some of the general memories that I have. CBS Radford, by the way, is where they shot Gilligan's Island. So rife with legendary studios and spaces and all that other kind of stuff. Super, super cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, I'm going to split those in two just because I know we want to get into the rest of the episode as well. So I'm going to play the rest of his voice memo a little bit later on. But that's so lovely to hear about all of the different things that you and the cast talked about, how welcoming they were. And Amy, just welcoming you guys with open arms. Also, what's his name? From Will and Grace, Sean Hayes is his name, I believe. He always asks his guests, like on his podcast, what crazy theater stories they have, because he's such a theater nerd. So you should, if you see him at whatever event is next, that's your in. That's your in. And to tell that Rob Lowe story as well. All right. So Ron finds Anne and asks her to help him watch the girls. And also he thinks her last name is Hansen, by the way, not Perkins, which I think is hilarious. And then Chris and Shauna are following the trash truck, and he's trying to connect with her, and it just doesn't quite seem to be a match, if you will. Like, maybe it's just a new thing, but that, like, game that, completing each other's sentence or whatever just doesn't seem like they're on the same page, or it's not the same page that Chris wants them to be on, I guess. So we'll just see how it plays out, I suppose. And then we find that Leslie and April are crushing the trash delivery. They're making better time than the men. I love this line. You'd think our boobs would get in the way. Love that so much. I also love, so I heard that so she tries to pose and take a picture when she's talking to Shauna about the article that Shauna's going to write. And Shauna is like, I don't have a camera. Are you posing? Like, there's no photographer here. And she's like, Google Earth, always taking pics. Apparently that was an improvised line. Amy Poehler just like straight up came up with that line. That is so amazing and smart. And you would not think about that. Like, what? I don't know if she had that in her head beforehand, but she's also a genius. So she probably just came up with it. But I love that little tidbit of her just making that up on the spot. Oh my God, so good. Well, now we're trying to teach Tom basketball, and it is not going great. Tom is just on his phone when a ball is thrown to him, so clearly he's just not even paying attention, and it's going to be a long road for Ben and Andy to try to teach him how to play this game. Okay, so now Anne is giving the girls a scary ghost story. Like, what the F? They're freaked out. Ron is like, okay, we got to do some damage control. Let's just not tell a ghost story. Are you kidding? And then finally they say, or Anne says that they can look through the nurse kit. And that's nice. That's a really good idea, actually, I feel, and we'll learn later that that really was the solution for this day anyway. But also kind of like a bad idea and at the same time, because they let their imaginations run a little too wild, dangerously wild. However, could have been worse. But anyhow, yeah, that's where they find their common ground, which I love. So, and then when Anne says, like, I can watch them, it's fine, then Ron immediately just flies away. Love this. April finds a girl's house on the trash route that she went to high school with. And she found out that, like, where she lives and stuff. Well, she already knew where she lived, but she finds out that her trash has hair dye in it. So that was, like, a great day for her to find out that her hair is not naturally that color. And she has prescription strength deodorant. Oh, my God. I also found online that the last name of this girl she went to high school with is Noblauk. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I'm sorry if that Noblauk. Which is German for garlic. So that could have been a fun, like, Easter egg moment on why she stinks and needs prescription deodorant, but I don't know if they did that on purpose. I honestly wouldn't have put it past them to do that because the writers just do that shit, which I love and it's great. But I don't know if that was a coincidence or not. So Steve is saying someone called in a pickup, so we got to go get the pickup. And we will talk about that a little bit later. That's just a little foreshadowing moment. We're not there quite yet. And then we'll get to the rest of Kif's voice memo. Tom is, finally making a basket, finally kind of getting somewhere. But then he gets too cocky because he challenges these teenagers to a game. Like, we know that's not going to go well. Which I love Ben's moment because that's what we're all thinking. This can really only go poorly. And these kids are so good. Andy just starts knocking them over because he can't handle it. And Tom is just pivoting. I'm pivoting. Ben told me to pivot. I told you can pivot, not that you can only pivot. Oh, my God. Mess. The kids give up playing them because clearly they suck. And they ask if Tom owns Rent-A-Swag, which is cool that Tom at this point, I know it's not that deep, but Tom has face recognition at this point. And I love that, he knows who he is, even though he says he sucks at basketball. These three kids' names are Zachary Mitchell, Chris Kodama, and DJ Clark. Just FYI, shouts to them. They did a great job, and we'll see them some more in the tag to this episode as well. Now with Anne and the kids, back with them, they really seem to like her now. She found a really great way to connect with them, which is nice. And she even says it's the most fun she's ever had with kids. Like, I guess she's never really had fun with them before, which again begs the question of, really? You want kids now? Right after this? Okay. But it's great. That's what I'm saying. Like, she could be the fun auntie. She can be like the fun babysitter, cousin, sister, whatever. And now she has fun with kids, so she can watch them whenever. But I wouldn't say you go that far to wanting to have them. Maybe this just got her wheels spinning. Okay, I'll try not to talk about it too much because it does get too deep. But I would like to know again, any writers, let me know. Did you mean to do this? But apart from the airing, out of order thing, like, was it just an oops kind of, because even if it was like only a couple episodes before you, I'd still be like, really, she wants kids now? Okay. All right. Moving on. Ron comes to grab her, to grab Anne. Like, they literally, oh my gosh, she is grabbed by Ron, and the kids, Zoe and Ivy, have locked themselves in the conference room, and they chop off their hair, and they say that it's infected. And this is what I mean when, like, it was kind of a good idea, but it sparked the imagination of the hair being infected, and it's got to go, and all these things. Jerry has keys, but he doesn't have like a huge thing of it. He has a huge thing of it. He doesn't have like the actual key that he needs to get in, which I know is comedy, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, oh my God, why is Jerry responsible for these keys? Okay. But I get it. That's also why you can't find it, because that's just great writing. I still think they could have busted the door open somehow. Ron throwing a printer through the window of the door, no. That's dangerous. But busting it open, like, Ron is strong enough, I think. He could have, like, smashed it open, like, told them to step aside. Wouldn't that have been better? I don't know. Maybe not. But I mean, I guess that's more of like a dire situation since they were just cutting each other's hair. At least nobody got hurt. However, Ron is freaking out because we'll learn later that he is, falling hard for this woman and he wants to do right by her. Okay, moving on. With sanitation department, the bakery says that they called in this huge fridge and they cannot move it. And both Dewey and Sanitation Steve are rubbing it in their faces and laughing at them and saying, "Oh, you can't do it. Bet you can't do it." And it's awful. And they did a great job, like Kiff said, about being very chauvinistic and very just like terrible men. So let's play the rest of his voice memo.
So you wanted to know about the location of where we shot the garbage truck stuff. So we shot the garbage truck over 2 days, according to my call sheet stuff. The first day, we shot over by the Glendale Sanitation, the Glendale Integrated Waste Management, actually, at 548 West Chevy Chase Drive in Glendale, California. That was the exterior sanitation lot. That was where we did the whole bit about Leslie's binders and making fun of her, and then we took off from there. It was kind of a safe location to work with a truck without being out in public. And then the next day, we drove around, and I'm going to look at my information and see if I can tell you what streets we were on for the rest of those other scenes. That scene in particular where Aubrey says, you ever find anything human in there? Head, please say head, that bit. Looking at my call sheet, I found the location for the streets where we shot the trash cans at the curb and the residential streets. Those were shot on Babcock Avenue and Millbank Street in Studio City, California. So fairly close to the Radford lot. Those scenes were scene 27, 26, and 28. So yeah, that's what we did. And then on Friday, we shot the refrigerator scene, Friday the 14th. And that one really stands out because that was the morning of the Sandy Hook massacre. And I remember being on set and hearing about it from Amy as she was reading about it on her cell phone. And yeah, it was just a massive tragedy. And to, and I remember we were working at Second City when September 11 happened and trying to write topical comedy for a show and figuring out how to be funny, do our jobs, which looking back on it also feels so trite in the face of massive tragedy and life loss and everything involved with the entire thing, of that experience and being on stage, like going up and we're going to get on stage and we're going to do the show on, the towers fell on Tuesday. We did a show. I think we canceled our show on Thursday and did the shows on Friday and trying to figure out like, how do we get up there and start telling jokes and facing that idea of like right now more than ever, people bought tickets and are coming specifically to lighten the load somehow. And, you really do feel that very keenly when there's a cultural event that we're all grieving from. And it's when we turn for distraction, we turn for being reminded of the light that's there and finding a way to do the job. And, it's not a hard job, right? Like being an actor has its challenges without a doubt, but it's also something that, personally, like my wife and I just literally finished binging the entire series of Barry over the past 3 days. And it's fascinating how much that show has buoyed us over, the end of the school year and all the other kinds of stuff. So you recognize the power of of shows that people love and the importance of continuing to make it. And importance feels like a big word until it's not a big word, until it's really true. And there's something really magnificent about being a part of a company and facing tragedy and continuing to make something and occlude that tragedy and dealing with it on our own personal ways, but then continuing to move content out. I don't know. But that's also intrinsically tied to my Parks and Rec experience. From the very beginning, Amy knew so many people I knew, and that made it a very comfortable working environment. I think even if we hadn't, she would have done that. Like as top of show, she really carries that freight beautifully, and it was a blast. And I had so much fun playing with Aubrey too, in particular when we were doing the stuff around the back of the garbage truck. Her brand of comedy is so off kilter and funny. She was just so fun to play with. It was truly like one of the greatest. I had done in Los Angeles, I had done one or two other on-camera things. I had done a bit on Nick Cannon's show Incredible Crew. I don't think I'd shot Behind the Candelabra yet, but Behind the Candelabra came very close after Parks and Rec, if memory serves. And on that show, I got to work with, Steven Soderbergh and Matt Damon and Danny Aykroyd, and it was an amazing gig. And there was something about having done Parks that gave me a level of confidence in other things, of being able to say and point to, like, oh, I was on Parks and Rec, and then people go, oh, like, you're legit. You know what I mean? There's something about being on a high-profile show that people already love that kind of validates you as you're starting things off. And also having a casting director like Dorian Frankel cast you on something, it speaks to a level of quality that you bring, and it gives people confidence in hiring you. So it was really very important. A lot of my gigs that you see on IMDb don't reflect a lot of the work I did prior to doing the film and TV video game animation work that you see on the profile now. Most of my work prior to that was in commercial. I had been the spokesman for Denny's. I did a couple Super Bowl spots for them. I was the brand voice of Advanced Auto Parts. I had already done my first mocap in a video game, Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition, where I played the Detroit boss Vince. And I was in the Star Wars game, Forces of Death, not Forces of Death, it's a cartoon I did. The Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where I played Skavik and a bunch of other roles. So I got to do a lot of stuff behind a microphone, and I had a lot of experience on camera, but most of that, again, was more commercial and industrial. So this was a huge win for film and theatrical, without a doubt.
That is so awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. The filming location is wonderful. That is so crazy about the comedy versus tragedy. And at the end of the day, it really is a service. It's insane how much we need entertainment. We need the arts. We need poetry. We just need a relief, but also a way to express what we're feeling in such a different way. That is wild that year and that day was when Sandy Hook happened. And it's not even to be political about it. It's just like, it's so true that we just, in a lot of ways we haven't learned our lessons yet. And we're seeing that, I think, in a lot of ways this year. But that is so tragic and wild that you went on stage after 9/11. But that's exactly right. People want to have a relief, want to have some sort of laughter, want to forget maybe a little bit, or maybe not forget, but just like take a pause from it. So that's really wild that your Parks time was characterized by that. Okay, so you did talk about the second time you came on set. So I will go ahead and just play that little bit as well.
I don't know where you are in your rewatch because I do recur. I show up again, but there's a big town hall meeting where they bring back characters who had been established to sort of fight with Leslie and the town hall. And that particular day, oh man, it was a full room. There were a ton of people, a lot of background. And I remember Colton Dunn and Harris Whittles were playing two characters, and when they were doing their like sort of being cross-examined by everybody up front, so like Adam Scott and Rob Lowe and Amy and Rashida's there. So like everybody is on the like questioning us, and we're all asking. It's like this Q&A thing. And Harris and Colton were improvising wildly in their questions to Amy. They'd start with a scripted line, and then Amy would respond, and then they just went off, man. And it was killing the audience. Everyone was laughing, and I was kind of like getting ready because I was the next one up, and I was like, I wonder, do I have this level of freedom? Can I play like this? And then I decided, without asking anybody, that I did. So, which I do regret this decision, but at any rate, we'll get there. So it comes up to my line after we finally get through that bit, and they come up and she's like, "Yes, Dewey." I was like, "Hi, my name's Dewey from sanitation," and I ask about changing the women's bathrooms. Or something along those lines. I need to look at the clip. But after Amy responded, I start improvising. And I just felt like I was so naughty. And it's so against my nature to take big swings like that. But one of the lines I remember improvising was something along the lines of, "Oh, hey, that's great. Do you like practical jokes? I'd love to go into the women's room and drop a deuce and blame it on the ladies." Something like that. And I remember hearing the audience around me do like a collective stop themselves from laughing bit, like and the room got quiet. And then Amy and Adam improvised with me, and I improvised a little bit more. And then when they called cut, everyone started laughing. And then Amy went backstage off set for a second. And I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And I remember either a lighting person or a grip, someone from the set walked over to me and he's like, "I got to shake your hand." And I took that to be such like I was like that. I just broke some kind of code. I've never done this ever again, by the way. I've just felt like I was completely off the rails with making this choice on this network television show to just start improvising. It's so out of character for me. And when Amy came back, Leslie had changed her tone. So initially it was combative with Dewey, but then when she came back after talking, I'm assuming she talked to either the writers or Dean Holland, who was the director, about what if I changed how I approached Dewey and was more like, a more condescending rather than sarcastic and mean. And that's what ended up making the final tape. I'll say this, and I kind of alluded to it, but winning a job on Parks and Recreation is one of those jobs that made me as an actor in Los Angeles. It validated, not for me personally, but it validated my career in a way. And I alluded to this earlier, but it does matter. When you book something like that, then people go, "Oh, then we can trust you for other things." And other options opened up very quickly. After Behind the Candelabra, then I got Danny Collins and Nightcrawler, so I got to work with Al Pacino and Jake Gyllenhaal and Rene Russo, and then Batman versus Superman, and then Richie Rich, where I was a series regular on the show, which is still on Netflix. So even so today, like I still get contacted from people who are fans of, who are doing exactly what you're doing on the show, of going back and revisiting Parks and Rec and reaching out, and it's just fun to get Facebook notes from people like, "Oh my God, we were watching Parks and Rec, we hadn't seen you," or whatever. It's kind of the greatest. So it was such a highlight of my early career in Los Angeles that to be able to revisit some of those moments, it was so formative too, and to be so welcomed to a set that was so playful and encouraging of comedic big swings, and as Amy would call it, a fun run. Like if we were on time and doing things well, and we get through with a take that would be printed. If we were ahead of schedule, Amy would ask for a fun run where we would be able to really loosen up our script and improvise a little bit more and see what came out. And I'm sure that's where you get a lot of the great blooper reels. But also there's some great stuff that came out of that when we were playing too. But the overall effect of it was just divine. And I long to cross paths with all those guys again. I actually saw Amy not long ago come into a Ralph's out here in North Hollywood. But I didn't bother her. If you're interested in getting in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram at KIFVH. That's KIFFVH. That's the same as my website is KIFVH.com. I teach voiceover. I teach improvisation. I have a couple podcasts. One podcast is called All Over Voiceover, where we do a deep dive into voiceover work, and some of the top VO people in Los Angeles and other places are guests on my show. And if you or know anyone who's an aspiring VO person, I highly recommend it. I'm also producing a show called Mad Rewind with my friend Brandy Stillwell, and this is a show about Mad TV and a rewatch of Mad TV and interviews with the cast and creators of the show. It's really terrific, and I think your audience, if they're enjoying Parks and Rec, will have fond memories, of course, of Mad TV and everything that was done there too. And then upcoming projects. I just was on the English dubcast of Tokyo Override on Netflix. I played Lizard, and it's a terrific anime series. If you're into that kind of thing, check it out. You can also see my series, The Crude's Family Tree. I played Grug on the show. That's streaming still on Hulu, courtesy of DreamWorks, Hulu and Peacock, and where you can also find Parks and Rec. But other than that, hit me up. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram. KIFVH is how you'll find me anywhere. Thanks again so much for having me on the show, you guys. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Kif. That was awesome. Oh my gosh, so many details in there. To be fair, you guys, I did ask 100 questions to Kif, so he did not leave a stone unturned, which I love. And we will make sure that he's tagged and his website's in the show notes and all those things. We love voiceover. Chris Carr, who has been on the podcast many a time, also teaches voiceover. And, I do voiceover every now and again. Haven't done it in a hot minute, but yeah, that's also super fun. So congratulations on all of that. And thank you so much. And it really has been, thank you so much for the second episode as well. We might hit you up again to hear some more information about that. But that's really wild and amazing that you took that long shot and it worked out. So that's awesome. And yeah, it really has been almost 10 years to the day, because this will come out probably December 12th. So that's really wild and insane. But thank you so much for all of that amazing behind the scenes details. We just love it so much. Oh my gosh. So let us know if you guys have any other questions. Moving right along. All right, so we're back at the huge fridge thing, not being able to move it from the pastry place or from the bakery or whatever. And I love that Leslie's line is she thought a sneak attack would work. Like, she's talking to the camera and then she just turns around really fast. Jerry finally gets in the conference room in the next scene, and Ron lets slip that he loves Diane. And he's in a rage now because he feels guilty and sad that the woman he loves is going to be mad at him now. But then he's also in a rage because he accidentally let slip that he loves Diane, and he hasn't said that, I think. So that is a huge, huge moment for us to see. All right. Now Shauna says, oh my gosh, this is the part we were talking about earlier. Shauna says that her and Chris were going to go get a drink afterwards, but she says other people were going to come, including her ex-boyfriend. Like, what? What the hell? Like, a bunch of people and your ex-boyfriend? But then she starts it by saying it's a really romantic place. So it's so confusing. So honestly, I don't blame Chris for being a little confused on what she means by this. And now Chris is having to wait for the disclaimer of their relationship, because she says she's going to put a little note kind of describing the nature of the relationship. And, I did see online that when they're talking about this group hang date, they're at the smallest park, which is interesting because I wonder if that's true. I could see them, recording / being in a place where they've already, filmed before. I did go back to check and you can kind of see it, but there's a fountain. But I don't know. I'm not sure if that's really it, but maybe that would be cute if it was. I'm kind of into the idea of just Leslie and Ben sharing the smallest park, but we'll see. All right, so the bakery guy comes out and says that these giant bear garbage men can't lift the fridge either. So why would they be able to lift it? And Leslie and April were tricked. And I like this actor. His name is Anver Garby, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This was his only acting credit listed on IMDb, but like Kif said, and like I always remind you guys, commercial work is not on IMDb, so he could be doing something else. I'm not sure, but I liked him. Thought he was good. April is now giving Leslie a pep talk because Leslie's kind of giving up and saying, you know what, fine, we didn't get to move it, whatever. But you know, I think this is really sweet that April is trying to be positive for Leslie because it's usually the other way around. So it's really nice to see that growth from April and, you know, that mentorship kind of coming back around, which is really lovely. However, she does suggest getting on PCP because you can move. She says, my cousin has that, or something like that, and you can move anything on PCP. It's really funny. But she wants to win, and it's very sweet. So I love that part. Leslie has an idea, though, and asks if the fridge still works, which we'll see the idea in just a moment. Side note, I don't believe you can just throw fridges away. You do have to take them to a landfill, which maybe this was happening, like maybe the garbage truck was going to take it to a landfill. But usually you have to take them yourself because the refrigerant has to be taken out. Same with air conditioners. And the reason I know this is because I've been cleaning out my mom's house and family's houses and stuff. And it's like a thing. They won't always take it at regular dumps. So I'm not sure how that was going to happen here. Not to say that that's like a plot thickener, whatever. Just letting you guys know for your regular life. Okay, so Tom is feeling really down because he cannot connect with these kid basketball players. And Ben shows Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook still not being defeated after a bad loss to try to give some inspiration. They were famously teammates on the Oklahoma Thunder, and they reached the NBA 2012 finals. So Ben is just trying to make sure that Tom knows, hey, even after these amazing athletes lose, they get back up. Let's go back to the gym. And the video does give Tom an idea, and it does work. It's not the idea that Ben had in mind, but this video does give them some ideas. Give Tom some ideas. Well, next up, Ron is talking to Diane. Diane is back, and obviously she's freaking out because Ron starts the conversation by saying there was an incident, no one was hurt, and Diane's like, oh my God. But she doesn't mind. She says that compared to putting Zoe putting Ivy in the dryer, it's really not that bad. And like we talked about, nobody got hurt. You know, there wasn't any blood. So I think Diane is used to being a mother and used to seeing like these kinds of shenanigans, which is really nice. And then Diane says she loves him. That's why she loves him, because he cares so much. And Ron's quietly saying, I love you too. It's so sweet. And it's just so nice that he felt bad about wanting to do right by her and right by the kids. And it's just a really lovely moment and arc for Ron Swanson. Well, Anna's super happy and excited that the girls like her now, and they're even saying bye to her and like being really nice as she's leaving. So I think that's really special for Anne. Also, okay, so this is where it's kind of annoying because when the article comes out, all Shauna said was that she has a personal relationship with Chris, and that's kind of a bummer, honestly. Like, I don't know. Just if I was reading that wanting to have more of a defining the relationship moment and just being like they have a personal relationship, like what? You could, I don't know. That seems weird. I guess you wouldn't say that if you were just friends, but still, I think you might have to say something if you were like close friends. I don't know. But Leslie does have a point, you know, keep it keep it chill, try to relax. You know, just see where it goes kind of thing. Because Chris is putting a lot of pressure on this. And I think Leslie, for the first time, is like, just, you know, see what happens, bro. And it is good advice, but it is impossible to follow, as Chris states. All right, so we're rounding out here where Leslie has had the idea to give the fridge to the soup kitchen, which is super smart. A bunch of ladies are there. Now, I will say this is kind of an oops moment because how did that fridge get on the little wheels thing? It is before I watched the episode, I was like, wait, how did all these girls move this onto the fridge? Like, I know there's a lot of people, but it's on wheels by the time the soup kitchen people come around. So how'd they do that? How did they do that? Okay. Because I do believe that even if it was just Leslie and April, and it was on the wheels, they wouldn't have been able to do it either. They needed more people, I think, even just to move it on wheels. But that's a little Loops moment that I'll forgive, but still worth mentioning. Okay, so this gal from the soup kitchen, she is amazing, and she has been in Gone Girl, Julie and Julia with Meryl Streep, The Librarian Scandal, like a lot of cool, awesome things. And she is so lovely. Her name is Julia, and she has sent in a lovely couple of voice memos. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Hi there. My name is Julia Prudhomme. Thank you for asking me. What an honor to be included. I was in one episode of Parks and Recreation in season 5. My character comes in right at the very tail end of the episode, right before the credits roll, and have a couple of lines of exchange with Amy Poehler, and then me and my crew of able-bodied women haul a freezer refrigerator onto the back of a truck. And the whole episode is about women can do anything that men can do, so which I also subscribe to. And so that's super awesome. I got the job through a straight audition. I was called in by the lovely casting director, Dorian Frankel. I had worked with Dorian a few years before that, as she was over in Allison Jones' office, and they were casting The Office. And so they cast me in The Office. And then a few years later, Dorian called me in for this role in Women in Garbage. I don't think it's said in the episode, but the background on the character I played is that she actually runs a women's shelter, and that she and all the women who come to pick up the refrigerator are at the women's shelter, live in the women's shelter, or work for the women's shelter. One of the things that Dorian is so good at is really attuning actors to the material. And Parks and Rec is one of my favorite kinds of shows, as is The Office, really, where you have some characters in that show, in both shows, but you can't play character. You have to play very, very real, very, very grounded. As an artist, a guest artist who was only there for one episode and for a very short period of time, I didn't really play a character. I was there to sort of help carry the story forward to its conclusion. Even with that character, that small part, Dorian is really, really good at making sure that you fit in the world of the show.
And that's awesome because, yes, we did hear that there was a soup kitchen, and I kind of thought it was a women's shelter, but I don't know if they actually say the words women's shelter, but they do say soup kitchen, and it's implied that everybody's working with them. So, or like working with them, living there, all that kind of thing. So, awesome. Okay, here's the next one.
The day on set was really pretty typical for that size of a role. You check in the morning, and they send you to hair and makeup, and you get in your costume, and then you're given a spot to hang out and wait until they're ready for you on the actual set to shoot your scene. I don't remember if I had a trailer or if I was given a room in a building. I know that I was given sort of a space of my own. Going to set for something like this, you always bring stuff to keep yourself occupied, whether it's crossword puzzles or a book you're reading or music or something like that. So, and then when they're ready for you, they call you to set. I do remember the director was this guy named Norm Hiscock, and I was super fangirly about him because he had famously worked for Kids in the Hall, and I'm a huge Kids in the Hall fan. I didn't have the courage to tell him how much I loved Kids in the Hall, so I didn't tell him that I knew that about him, but I just remember feeling very like, oh my gosh, Kids in the Hall associate. He was super nice, very calm, quiet presence. He was great. And I think the only note he gave me was he told me I didn't have to be quite so breathless at the hauling of the giant refrigerator. I think I was doing a little too much of the, oh, this is heavy kind of thing. And he sort of said, no, you don't have to do that.
That's so nice. Oh my gosh. That I keep forgetting to say, or I kept forgetting to say, we interviewed Norm. Oh my gosh. I think I was thinking Morgan Sackett, when I read the name Norm Hiscock, because Morgan also worked on all of these shows. But yeah, we interviewed Norm and we talked about Kids on the Hall. So I'll post that interview in there too. I mean, that was a hot minute ago, but so lovely. And yes, he is a very calming, lovely presence.
I had never met or had worked with anybody on that set before. Gosh, everybody was so nice. It's the middle of their workday, or in this case, I think by the time we got to that scene, it was the late afternoon and those guys had been going all day. But still, they take a time to stop and introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Amy. Hi, I'm Rob. Hi, I'm Aubrey. And then you just get down to doing the work. Even though my exchange in the scene was with Amy, the person I probably talked to or hung out with the most was Aubrey, just because of where she was positioned on the set and where I was positioned on the set. And I just have to say, she was the coolest, most down to earth, no ego. Like, hey, I'm an actor, you're an actor, we're colleagues, kind of vibe. And that was really awesome to hang out with. It was a good day on set. Good people.
That's awesome to hear that everybody was so nice. Okay, we love that. We haven't heard a bad thing yet, so I'm not going to jinx it. Well, hopefully I didn't. All right, last one. Thank you, Julia.
Probably everybody says this, but I'm so happy I got to be just even the smallest part of Parks and Rec because I love that show. It's iconic. It's brilliant. It's made me laugh out loud so many times watching it, and brilliantly written, acted, produced. What an amazing show. So to even be the smallest part of it, I'm so happy I got to do that. For me personally, upcoming, I shot 2 feature films this year. Both are independent and they will be submitted to film festivals, the film festival circuit. Both of them right now are in post-production, which means they're still being put together with editing and color correction and adding music and stuff like that. So I'm not sure when they're going to come out. They're different from each other, but they have some similarities in that they both are sort of coming-of-age stories. One of them is called Dead Deer High. It takes place in a high school, and it focuses around a group of poetry students who are dealing with an anniversary event of something that affected all of them, while they're also approaching this really mega poetry slam competition. I play the substitute teacher named Ms. Garrels. It's a dream of a role for a character actor, and I love it. I can't wait to see it. The second film that I worked on is called Evergreens, and it's 2 people who don't know each other very well, but set off together on a cross-state trip across the state of Washington. Again, I got really lucky. I play a wonderful character named Kathy, who owns a Western bar in Leavenworth, which is a Bavarian-themed, sort of Christmas-themed town up in the mountains in the middle of Washington state. They have a Nutcracker museum, if that tells you anything. That was another gift of a role for an actor like me. So it was great to get to work with them. And the rest of the cast was also just phenomenal in both films. And upcoming also, I may be in a show at a theater called Theater of Note in Hollywood in February. It's a show based on women's stories of menopause. And trust me when I say it's probably a night of comedy, because going through menopause is no joke. It is hell, and it is ridiculous. And so it's stories based on that theme. And so I think I'm supposed to be part of that. That'll be in February at Theater of Note in Hollywood. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely to sit and take some time and revisit my memories of Parks and Rec. So I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. Okay, bye.
That was awesome. Thank you, Julia, so much for that. We will definitely tag you so that people can follow all of your upcoming projects, and that theater experience sounds awesome and definitely on theme with women in all of these amazing, powerful roles, because women are amazing. That's all I'll say about that. So thank you, Julia. We really appreciate it so much. Awesome. Well, we do learn that the sanitation department after this has hired 3 new female garbage workers. So it is a success. And I love that they added that in. That's really lovely. I love that April gave Leslie a present, and it's wrapped in this really, really beautiful box, but it's just trash. And it's just trash. She keeps digging in. It's just trash. Then we're at the tag. It's super cute. There is a kids news station doing an after event thing for the basketball team. Brandon Turnbill, by the way, who is the reporter kid, is played by Augie Isaac, and they were all super fun, like I mentioned before. Josh does have really cool clothes on, so that's really cool. And I love that Tom figured out a way to make basketball and Rent-A-Swag work. It was great. I will say he says glasses without frames in them, and those glasses clearly have frames, so maybe he's just speaking to the people that don't need frames, question mark. But either way, it was great. And everybody looks really good. Everybody has suits on, and they just look like professional athletes at the end of, their game. And so I'm really glad that he found a way to make that coincide. Thank you guys so much for listening. That was Women in Garbage. And thank you so, so much to everybody who contributed to this episode. All the voice memos were so, so good. And we love hearing it all. So thank you for sending in everything and just talking about your experience. So lovely. And yeah, I just love hearing that all of the amazing people were nice and that you had a nice time on set and that you got to have some crazy time. So please let us know if you have any questions. Please follow us on Instagram, Park Pals Podcast. Make sure you're hitting the follow button on the podcast itself. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I think you can like it. That really helps us out with the algorithm and making sure that we can make more of these for you guys. Hope that your December's going well. I know everybody's kind of in that, oh my God, is it over yet vibe? Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people I'm talking to are, because it's been a tough ass year, okay? It's been a tough, tough year, and I'm just hoping that we can bring you a little bit of joy and light and love, and let us know if there's anything else you want us to research. But otherwise, we will see you next time. Hopefully Maddie will be able to join us, and hope you have a great week, you guys. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
There's a park and some pals, and there's also therapy too.